Welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to the official MyaFlys YouTube channel. I'm super excited about making videos on here because I have some amazing plans for it. Most of you are probably from either my Instagram or my TikTok because I have more of a following over there. But if you've never seen me before, hi, my name is Maya, I'm 16 years old and I'm a student pilot. It has always been my dream to fly airplanes, and last summer, I made that dream come true. And I think it's fitting for my very first video to go into depth on why I decided to become a student pilot and my journey from beginning to present. So I hope you enjoy. It all started when I saw my very first air show when I was 8 years old. 8 years ago is crazy. That air show at my local Air Force base honestly changed my life. So I begged and begged and begged my parents to let me go to my local airport. Surprisingly, they let me. When I got there, the people at the flight school were very surprised to see a very young girl interested in flying planes. And the conversations sort of went like this. Oh, hi, sweetie. How are you? Good, how are you? How old are you? 8? Oh, I'm sorry, you're way too young to start flight training. Maybe come back in a few years. Okay. That was historically accurate. I showed up a few years later asking if I was old enough. At that time, I was, I think, in 5th grade. And they were still like, you're too young, come back later. I returned once again when I was in 7th grade. And this time they told me that the proper age to probably start flight training is around 15 years old. So I kept that in mind, and while I was there, I bought all of the ground school books with my own hard-earned money. And ever since I got those books, I was absorbed in them. I could not be taken away from them. I studied them religiously, and I was so excited. But then the pandemic hit, which really hit me hard. During the pandemic, my love for aviation sort of dwindled. With general aviation sort of being shut down and everything put on hold, I just lost interest. I lost interest for a while, even after the pandemic. Once we all went back to school and everything, I got absorbed in volleyball, and it was a great time, and I wouldn't trade it for everything. But a hip injury led me to stop playing volleyball for good. I was really devastated about that hip injury, and I thought my life was over. Like, my life was volleyball. I was in varsity in 8th grade. But I knew that there was something else out there for me, and I sort of completely forgot about aviation. That was until spring of 2022, when my local air show came back once again. Always leave it to those air shows, holy cow. That air show reminded me of my love for aviation, and I was 15, so I could go back and start my flight training. So that summer, with me not being engrossed in volleyball, I was able to start flight training, and I was super excited. I immediately enrolled in ground school that day. Summer of 2022 was crazy. While studying for my ground school exams, I was also going through driver's ed. The first flight school I went to had a Piper Archer III. I believe it was a 1972 Piper Archer III, to be more specific. And that plane was the love of my life. It was the first plane I ever flew, and I was immediately attached to it. But let's go back to the first time I met the plane. So when I signed up for the ground school, I also scheduled a discovery flight. That's where you go up with an instructor in a plane and you make sure that, oh yeah, this is fun, this is not absolutely terrifying. It's basically, the school doesn't want you to start freaking out after you paid the money, so they just have these flights at a lower rate so you can see if you're actually interested in it. Man, that discovery flight got me hooked. Like I said, I went up in this 1972 Piper Archer III, and it was probably one of the best days of my life. Of course, I didn't take off or land, I only did a few gentle turns, and I was terrified of turbulence. I've been flying commercially pretty much my entire life, so turbulence is no new thing to me. But the idea of turbulence in a little general aviation aircraft, terrified me. So during my first discovery flight, whenever we hit a tiny little rough patch, I'm like, your controls, and he took over. Thankfully, my flight instructor is super nice, and he completely understood. So after that discovery flight, I immediately started working on flight training. I did about 15 hours in that Piper Archer 3 before I switched to my new ground school. Nothing wrong with my old ground school at all. Don't get me wrong, I love them. Every single person there was incredibly nice. It's just the other ground school had a little bit more opportunity for me because they were an official Cirrus partner and they had a ton of airplanes compared to 2 Archers. Also, my flight instructor was planning to switch over there anyways, and I was planning to switch over there, so we stayed together and switched schools, which was incredible because my instructor is amazing. At my new school, they didn't have any Piper Archers. They only had Cessna 172s and Cirrus SR-20s, so I had to either learn one of them. And at first, I chose the Cessna 172N because it was most similar to the Archer that I was used to flying, and also I wasn't financially able to start flying Cirrus yet. That's where I got most of my hours. My flight training in the Cessna was amazing. I was really skeptical of high wings at first because the only other planes I've flown were low wings, and that's sort of like the original airplane idea in my head. Like all the commercial airplanes are low wings, all the other things are low wings, all the cool planes are low wings. Now my opinion has completely changed. I love high wings with all my heart, and they are amazing. I pretty much fall in love with every plane I fly, so don't ask me which plane's the best. I love them all. Like I said, I got most of my hours on the Cessna 172N, and it was a blast. Now, my solo. It felt like my entire life has been leading up to this moment. Ever since my very first air show, it has been my goal, my life ambition, to solo on my 16th birthday. And I had been ready to solo for a few months before because I think I had around 45 hours of flight time when I soloed, so I was well prepared for this. So I woke up on January 27th, 2023 with really high expectations, but I look outside and it's IFR conditions. And I look on ForeFlight and my local airport, it is low IFR conditions. And my heart was crushed. Of course, I looked at the TAF 100 million times before this and it wasn't looking good, so I was already a little bit mentally prepared, but just actually seeing that it was bad, it crushed my heart. Keep in mind, this was at 6 a.m. in the morning, so I was still hopeful things could change. I was communicating with my instructor and we were sort of like, I don't know if it's gonna happen, but let's just have you come down to the airstrip and we can assess it then. Another factor to throw into the big mess is that I was planning for 25 people to come and watch my solo. All my friends and family love aviation and they've never gotten into it themselves, so they wanted to see me solo, which I'm really happy and really grateful that they care about this. The external pressures were very high for this event, and I was aware of that. But I made a promise to myself that if the conditions weren't 100% perfect, that I would not solo that day, because I don't want to risk anything. So here we are, at the airport, with IFR conditions, with 25 people waiting in the nearby FBO to hear any news. I was obviously stressed out because I didn't know if I was going to solo or not that day. Just the idea of flying an airplane by myself and not knowing if it's gonna happen or not that day, that's a lot of stress. As I was sort of feeling a little sad about my solo not possibly happening on my 16th birthday, the owner of my flight school came up to me and was like, hey, they're doing a return to service flight on the Cirrus SR-22 Turbo, and they have an extra seat in the back. Do you want to go with them? Yes, of course I do. So they surprised me with a Cirrus SR-22 Turbo flight. Of course, I was in the back seat, but I got to go for no charge, for free. And I was super excited. It was sort of like, okay, I got in the air on my 16th birthday. That's pretty good. But this flight was amazing. This was my first flight in a general aviation aircraft in IFR conditions, and it made me super, super excited to start my IFR training. But it made me really appreciate Cirruses and made me really want to start transitioning to fly them. There were some absolutely gorgeous views that day, and it just made my soul happy just to know that I got up in the air on my 16th birthday. We landed back at the airport, and things were looking a little bit clearer, but things weren't still perfect. Keep in mind, the 25 people are still waiting for me in the FBO. I have the best family and friends. Like, come on. They waited, I think, 5 hours. Okay, so I got back on the ground, I walked into my ground school, and my flight instructor was there. And I told him, okay, I made up my mind. I'm gonna wait 45 more minutes. And if the conditions don't clear up, if it's not VFR, and if it's not perfect, I'm not soloing today, and we'll just reschedule it for tomorrow. And he was okay with that, so I walked over to the FBO to tell my friends and family the news, and to just sort of hang out with them and try to relax before my possible solo. After 30 minutes of waiting, things weren't clearing up. There was no wind, which was good, but there was no wind to clear out the clouds. But then, within the last 15 minutes, some miracle happened, and it cleared up perfectly. Perfect VFR conditions. I was over the moon. So I ran back over to my flight school, found my instructor in the building. I'm like, it cleared up, it cleared up. He was like, yeah, it did, let's go. And so we run to the airplane because we had it booked the whole day because we knew something like this was gonna happen. We ran to the airplane, pre-flighted it really thoroughly, and we hopped in and we did our 3 laps of us together. If you don't know how solos work, usually you go up with your instructor first to make sure you feel 100% comfortable before you go up solo. So we did our 3 laps, I felt fantastic, and I taxied back, dropped him off, and holy cow, it's time.
Cessna 738 Bravo Sierra, Phelps ground, runway 22 right, taxi via Delta and Bravo, cross runway 22 left.
22 right via Delta Bravo, cross runway 22 left, 8 Bravo Sierra. Oh my goodness. Pulse Tower, Skyx 738 Bravo Sierra is ready for takeoff, runway 22 right.
Skyx 738 Bravo Sierra, Phelps Tower, make right close traffic, runway 22 right, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, runway 22 right, make right close traffic, 8 Bravo Sierra. Here we go! Pulse Tower, Skyx 8 Bravo Sierra is midfield for runway 22 right, request option.
Cessna Bravo Sierra, runway 22 right, cleared for the option.
Clear for the option, runway 22 right, 8 Bravo Sierra. Ooh, okay, here we go.
Cessna 4 uniform, the outbound Skywagon heading to your left has you in sight. He's indicating 3,300. A4 uniform, still looking.
55. And
I taxied back to all my friends and family cheering me on.
I did it! Yeah, you did, huh?
This is one of my core memories. It makes me so happy just remembering it. I pulled back in, nearly almost parked perfectly on the tee. Of course, we did the ceremony, we cut the shirt, we did everything, got pictures, and it was the best day ever. I did a few more solos on my own before I started to think that I think it's time to switch to the Cirrus. So, that's everything. I mean, up to now. I have my very first Cirrus flight this upcoming Thursday, which by the time this video comes out, I probably have already done. So that's exciting, but I've been studying to fly this plane, the Cirrus SR-20, for around 2 months now, just learning the systems, procedures, flows, emergencies, everything to know about this aircraft, and working in the simulator with my instructor. I'm super excited to start this new chapter of my aviation journey, and I'm super excited to share it with you. So stick around and subscribe and turn on notifications so you know when my next adventure has been uploaded. Talk to you guys soon.